I thought 17 years had built an unshakable fortress until a bone-dry gym towel and a locked phone started to reveal the cracks. 17 years. That's a lifetime, isn't it? 17 years of waking up to the same person, of knowing the exact scent of his coffee, the specific rumble in his chest when he's about to laugh. 17 years with Mark. We built a life that was, by all accounts, perfect. We had the house in the suburbs with the slightly too big mortgage. 2 incredible kids, Liam, our sarcastic 15-year-old, and Chloe, our sweet, bright-eyed 11-year-old. We were the couple other people looked at and said, I want that. We were solid, unshakable. A fortress built on a foundation of shared jokes, late-night talks, and weathering every storm life had thrown at us. The change was so gradual, I almost missed it. It started about a year ago. Mark, who had always been more of a dad bod kind of guy, suddenly became obsessed with his health. It started with swapping his morning bagel for a protein shake, then cutting out beer on weeknights. I was proud of him, supportive even. Then came the gym. Iron Haven Fitness, a sleek, modern place that had just opened up downtown. At first it was 3 days a week, an hour after work. He'd come home smelling of sweat and soap, energized and vibrant. He started losing weight. His jawline re-emerged from beneath a layer of comfortable contentment, and there was a new confidence in his stride. He looked good. He looked incredible, actually. But then 3 days a week became 5. An hour became 2, sometimes 3. Just gotta get one more set in, he'd text. Or, met this guy who's training for a marathon. He was giving me some tips. I'd have dinner ready, the kids would ask where Dad was, and I'd offer up the same excuse, pasting a smile on my face. Dad's just working really hard on his fitness, guys. It was a good thing, right? A man in his early 40s taking care of himself? I should be thrilled. Part of me was, but another part, a tiny, cold little worm of doubt, started squirming in the pit of my stomach. The little things started to pile up. His phone, which used to be communal property for looking up recipes or song lyrics, was now constantly in his pocket or face down on the counter. A new passcode appeared that I didn't know. When I casually asked about it, he just shrugged. Work stuff, new security protocol, it's boring. He started taking calls in the garage. His laughter, when I could hear it through the door, sounded different, lighter, younger. It wasn't the warm, familiar laugh he shared with me and the kids. It was a laugh I didn't recognize. The real shift, the one I couldn't ignore, was in his gym bag. One evening, he came home late, looking exhausted but glowing. He dropped his bag by the door and went straight for the shower. Chloe had spilled juice on the floor, and as I was cleaning it up, I nudged the bag with my foot. It felt light. Too light. On a whim, my heart thumping a guilty rhythm against my ribs, I unzipped it. Inside were his sneakers, a bottle of water that was still half full, and a towel. I picked up the towel. It was perfectly dry, bone dry. I lifted it to my face and inhaled. It smelled faintly of his cologne and laundry detergent. It didn't smell like a gym. There was no trace of sweat, no hint of the musky, metallic scent of the weight room. It was clean. His workout clothes, stuffed in a separate compartment, felt the same, dry, unused. I zipped the bag back up, a cold dread washing over me. My mind raced, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe he showered and changed at the gym? Yes, that had to be it. Iron Haven was a fancy place. Of course they'd have nice showers. He probably just threw his clean towel back in the bag. It was a stupid thing to get worked up over. I told myself I was being paranoid that 17 years of trust shouldn't be undone by a dry towel. So I buried the thought. I pushed it down deep and tried to be the supportive wife he deserved. The distance between us grew into a quiet, gaping chasm. The man who used to tell me every detail of his day now gave me one-word answers. Our nights, which once were for us, became his time to scroll endlessly on his phone, a small, tight smile on his face as his thumbs moved across the screen. I felt like a ghost in my own marriage. Tonight was the breaking point. He was supposed to be home for Chloe's band recital, he'd promised. But at 6 o'clock, an hour before we had to leave, a text came through. "So sorry, babe. Dave just bailed on our workout. Got a spot for Mike instead. Can't miss leg day. Tell Chloe I'll make it up to her." Leg day. It felt like a punch to the gut. He chose leg day over his daughter. I saw the disappointment crumple Chloe's face, and something inside me snapped. The little worm of doubt I'd been suppressing for months grew into a monstrous serpent, coiling around my heart and squeezing until I could barely breathe. After I put a heartbroken Chloe to bed, I sat in the silent kitchen, the hollow echo of our perfect life mocking me. His gym bag was sitting by the door again, a black nylon monument to his lies. I stared at it, my mind a frantic storm of suspicion and fear. What if I was wrong? What if I accused him and shattered everything for nothing? But what if I was right? I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to know. I needed one solid piece of truth in a sea of uncertainty. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my laptop and typed Iron Haven Fitness into the search bar. The website was sleek, all chrome and motivated-looking people. The phone number was right there on the home page. My heart hammered against my ribs. What was I even going to say? I couldn't just ask if my husband was there. That was insane. I needed a pretext, an excuse. An idea sparked: our family membership. We'd talked about getting one when he first joined, but the kids were never interested. It was the perfect cover. I took a deep, shuddering breath and dialed the number. A cheerful, impossibly young-sounding voice answered on the second ring. "Iron Haven Fitness, this is Jessica. How can I make your day stronger?" I almost hung up. My voice came out as a weak, reedy thing I barely recognized. "Hi, Jessica. I was just calling to check on my husband's membership status. His name is Mark Peterson. I think we were on a family plan, and I wanted to see about adding my son." I held my breath, waiting. I could hear her typing, the clacking of the keys like a countdown to the end of my world. "Okay, let's see. Mark Peterson. M-A-R-K, she mumbled. There was a long pause. Too long. The silence stretched, filled only by the frantic pounding in my ears. "Huh," she said finally. "That's strange." My blood ran cold. "What?" I whispered. "What's strange?" Jessica's voice was still upbeat, completely oblivious to the fact that she was holding a grenade and had just pulled the pin. "Well, ma'am, I have a Mark Peterson in our system, but it looks like his membership expired about 6 months ago. He never renewed." The laptop screen in front of me blurred. The cheerful voice on the other end of the line kept talking, something about renewal deals and a free personal training session, but I couldn't hear her. All I could hear was the deafening roar of 17 years of trust turning to dust. 6 months. He hadn't been a member for 6 months, and in the crushing silence of my perfect home, only one question echoed. If he wasn't at the gym, where has he been going every single night for the last 6 months? I hung up the phone without another word, my hand falling into my lap like a dead weight. The cheerful voice from Iron Haven Fitness faded, replaced by a roaring silence that filled my head. 6 months. For 180 days, my husband had walked out the door with his gym bag slung over his shoulder, kissed me goodbye, and walked straight into a lie. The kitchen, usually so warm and full of life, suddenly felt like a sterile, cold stage set. Every object, the kids' drawings on the fridge, the coffee maker Mark had bought me for our anniversary, the worn spot on the floor where we always danced while cooking, seemed to mock me, relics of a life I no longer recognized. My first impulse was pure white-hot rage. I wanted to smash something. I wanted to call him right then and scream, to hear his voice crack as the carefully constructed walls of his deception came crashing down. But as quickly as the anger flared, a chilling, glacial calm washed over me. What good would screaming do? He'd just lie more. He was good at it, apparently. A seasoned professional. No, I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of watching me break. Not yet. If he could play a game for 6 months, I could play one for a night. I needed more than just the absence of a gym membership. I needed to know where he was, who he was with. I needed the whole, ugly, unvarnished truth before I detonated the bomb that would obliterate our 17 years. An hour later, I heard his car pull into the garage. My body went rigid. I quickly splashed some water on my face, trying to erase the shock and betrayal that I was sure were etched there. I smoothed my shirt, took a deep breath, and arranged my face into a mask of weary neutrality. He walked in, right on cue, smelling of the crisp night air and his expensive cologne. He dropped the black gym bag by the door. "Hey, babe," he said, his voice laced with that fake post-workout exhaustion. "Mike is a beast. My legs are going to be jelly tomorrow." He leaned in to kiss me, and I had to fight every instinct in my body not to recoil. His lips were cool, and for the first time, they felt alien against my skin. "How was the recital?" he asked, already moving toward the fridge for a bottle of water. "Chloe was amazing, wasn't she?" The casual way he said it, as if he'd been there in the front row with me, sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. "She was incredible," I said, my voice tight. "She missed you." He sighed, the picture of paternal guilt. "I know, I feel terrible. I'll take her for ice cream tomorrow, just the two of us. I'll make it up to her, I promise." His promises. They were worthless, empty calories. I just nodded, unable to form words that weren't dripping with acid. He drained the water bottle, announced he was hitting the shower, and jogged up the stairs, leaving me alone with the black bag. The lie. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. This was my chance. I crept to the front door, my ears straining for the sound of the shower upstairs. Once the water started running, I pounced. My hands shook as I unzipped the main compartment. It was the same as before. Dry towel, unused workout clothes, a full bottle of water. He hadn't even bothered to drink from this one. I wasn't just being lied to, I was being insulted. Did he think I was that stupid? That unobservant? Fury gave me focus. I tore through the side pockets. Keys, loose change, a protein bar still in its wrapper. And then, my fingers brushed against a small, crinkled piece of paper. I pulled it out. It was a receipt. It wasn't from a smoothie bar or a health food store. The name at the top read The Crimson Lounge. I'd never heard of it. I quickly Googled it on my phone. It was a cocktail bar downtown, a dimly lit, expensive-looking place in a part of town we never went to. The date on the receipt was from tonight. The timestamp was from less than an hour ago. And listed below the date were 2 items, one old-fashioned and one spiced pear martini, 2 drinks. He wasn't alone. He was having intimate, expensive cocktails with someone while his daughter played her heart out on a school auditorium stage. I stuffed the receipt into my pocket, my mind spinning. The shower upstairs stopped. I quickly zipped up the bag and scrambled back to the kitchen, my breath catching in my throat. Mark came downstairs a few minutes later, wrapped in a towel, his hair damp. He smiled at me. "Feeling human again," he said, completely oblivious. "Think I'll just crash on the couch and watch the game." He grabbed his phone from the counter and I watched as his thumb danced across the screen, unlocking it with a practiced flick. He settled onto the sofa, and soon the only sounds were the low murmur of the sports commentators and the rhythmic tapping of his fingers on his phone. He fell asleep like that an hour later, his head lolled to one side, the phone resting loosely on his chest. Now or never. I tiptoed over, my every nerve ending screaming. My hand hovered over the phone, then, with the delicacy of a bomb disposal expert, I lifted it from his chest. The screen was dark. I pressed the side button. It lit up, demanding a passcode. My mind went blank. The 6-digit code. What was it? I tried the obvious ones first, our anniversary. 07126. Try again. Liam's birthday. Try again. Chloe's birthday. Try again. I had 2 more attempts before it would be disabled. Panic set in. This was my only shot. I sank to the floor trying to think. He'd changed it months ago, right when all this started. He'd said it was a new security protocol from work. He was always so dismissive. Then I remembered something. A stupid offhand comment he'd made a few weeks back when he was booking flights for a work trip. He'd laughed and said, "My new lucky number just popped up again, 231988, seeing it everywhere." At the time, I'd just smiled and nodded, my mind on a dozen other things. It had meant nothing. But now, it could mean everything. With a trembling finger, I typed it in. 231988. The screen flashed and then it opened. I was in. My breath hitched in my throat. I was staring at his home screen, a family photo of us at the beach last summer, smiling, a bitter irony. And right there, at the top of the screen, was a new message notification, a banner that had just arrived moments before he fell asleep. It wasn't from Mike or Dave or anyone from work. The name was Jenna. And the message underneath was a stake through my heart. "Can't stop thinking about tonight. You looked amazing." Jenna. The name hung in the air, a 4-letter demolition ball aimed at the foundations of my life. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My entire universe shrank to the dimensions of the phone screen in my hand. "Can't stop thinking about tonight. You looked amazing." It wasn't just a message. It was a key, unlocking a secret room in my husband's life I never knew existed. My thumb, moving with a will of its own, tapped on the notification, opening their entire conversation, and my world tilted on its axis. It was all there, 6 months of a secret life, cataloged in glowing text bubbles. I scrolled up, my eyes devouring the words, each one a fresh stab of betrayal. There were pet names. He called her his Firefly. She called him her Rock. There were inside jokes about things I didn't understand, references to restaurants we'd never been to, movies we hadn't seen. They talked about everything and nothing, her stressful day at her graphic design job, his feigned exhaustion from a brutal leg day. A message from 3 months ago made me sick. "Gotta go, Firefly," he'd written. "Time to face the music at home. Wish I was staying with you." A winky face emoji followed. He was complaining about me, about his family, to her. We weren't his life. We were the music he had to face, the obstacle. I kept scrolling, a glutton for my own punishment. The timeline of his lies unfolded before my eyes. Every late night, every canceled family dinner, every whispered phone call in the garage was documented here. He sent her selfies from his car, captioned, "On my way," while I was at home telling the kids, "Dad's just finishing up at the gym." He was smiling in the photos, a genuine, unburdened smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. He looked younger, happier. He looked like a man in love. Then I saw the photos of them together. My breath hitched, a ragged, painful sound in the silent room. There were dozens. A selfie of them clinking cocktail glasses at the Crimson Lounge from tonight, his arm slung casually around her shoulder. She was beautiful, of course, younger than me, with long, dark hair and bright, laughing eyes. In the photo, she was looking at him with pure adoration, and he was looking at the camera, a triumphant smirk on his face. There were others, them walking in a park, leaves crunching under their feet, them laughing on a bench, sharing a coffee. They looked so natural, so comfortable, a real couple. What were Mark and I? A business arrangement? A cover story for his real life? 17 years of memories began to curdle in my mind. Our wedding day, the birth of our children, the quiet moments that I had cherished as the bedrock of our love. Were they all a lie? Had I been sharing my husband with this stranger? Or had I lost him completely and was just living with his ghost? The rage was gone, replaced by a profound, hollow emptiness. I wasn't just losing my husband, I was losing my past. He had stolen it, rewritten it with every secret text and stolen kiss. He stirred on the couch, a soft groan in his sleep, and I froze, my blood turning to ice. I held my breath, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. He settled again, oblivious. My time was running out. My mission wasn't over. I needed to see everything. I swiped out of the messages and went straight to his photo gallery. Hidden in a folder titled Projects were hundreds more photos of her. Jenna on a balcony overlooking the city, Jenna sleeping, her face soft and peaceful in the morning light, Jenna wearing his shirt. His shirt, in a bed that was not ours. He wasn't just meeting her for drinks, he was waking up with her. He had a whole other home, a whole other morning routine that didn't involve me or his children. Adrenaline surged through me again, cold and sharp. This was bigger than I thought. This wasn't just a fling. This was a parallel life. I needed more evidence, more proof. I closed the photos and opened his email app. My fingers flew across the screen, typing Jenna into the search bar. A few emails popped up, mostly confirmations for dinner reservations at places I'd never heard of. But then I saw something else. It wasn't from Jenna, but her name was in the subject line. The sender was Oakwood Properties. The subject, Lease Agreement Finalized, Unit 7B. My heart stopped. I clicked on it. It was an email from 2 months ago congratulating Mr. Mark Peterson and Ms. Jenna Hayes on their new apartment. I scanned the document, my vision blurring. It was a 1-year lease. For a 2-bedroom apartment in a luxury building downtown, not 15 minutes from our house. He wasn't just sleeping over at her place. They had a place together. A home. Our home, the one we had built over 17 years, was just a base of operations. The real living was happening in Unit 7B. I felt a dizzying wave of vertigo. I had to get out of the app before he woke up. As I swiped back to the main inbox, my eyes caught on another email, this one from just last week. The sender was Crate and Barrel. The subject line felt like a final, brutal punch to the stomach. It read, Your order confirmation, the Davenport sofa. Delivery scheduled for this Saturday. I clicked it open, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold the phone. There it was, an invoice for a brand new, expensive-looking sectional sofa. And there, listed in cold black letters, was the delivery address. It wasn't our address. It was for 125 River Street, Apartment 7B. This Saturday, he was building a nest. He was buying furniture. While I was at home washing his gym clothes, his clean, unused gym clothes, he was literally building a new life, piece by piece, just a few miles down the road. I gently placed the phone back on his chest, my movements slow and deliberate, as if handling an unexploded bomb. My mind, however, was a Category 5 hurricane. A sofa. He had bought a sofa for their apartment. It was such a domestic, permanent thing. It wasn't the act of a man having a fleeting affair. It was the act of a man building a future that didn't include me, Liam, or Chloe. The image of him and Jenna picking out fabric swatches, laughing as they planned where to put their new sofa in their secret home, played in my mind on a torturous loop. I crept back to the kitchen, the linoleum cold beneath my bare feet. The house was so quiet I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, a sound that usually meant comfort and stability, but now sounded like a death rattle. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, wrapping my arms around myself as a violent tremor ran through me. It wasn't sadness, not yet. The grief was a tidal wave still far out at sea. Right now, it was a cold, hard fury that settled deep in my bones, crystallizing into a diamond of pure, unadulterated rage. He hadn't just cheated. He had built an entirely separate existence. He was 2 different men, living 2 different lives, and I was unknowingly funding the demolition of my own. My salary, my inheritance from my parents, our joint savings. It was all paying for the mortgage on this house, the food in his stomach, the gas in his car that he used to drive to her, to their apartment, to their life. The thought made my blood boil. The supportive wife, the partner, the fool. I had been his enabler. For 6 months, I had smiled and packed his gym bag, metaphorically speaking. I had made his excuses to the children. I had kept his dinner warm. While he was playing house with Jenna, I was the unpaid, unsuspecting house manager of his decoy life. A wave of clarity, sharp and painful, washed over me. He wasn't going to get away with it. He wasn't just going to walk away from 17 years, leaving me and the kids in the wreckage while he settled comfortably onto his brand new Davenport sofa. Oh no. I was going to dismantle his little secret world with the same methodical precision he had used to build it. Sleep was impossible. I spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, my mind a war room of strategy. By the time the first gray light of dawn seeped through the blinds, I had a plan. It was audacious, it was terrifying, and it was perfect. I was going to beat him at his own game. The next morning was surreal. I moved through our morning routine on autopilot, a Stepford wife in my own horror movie. I made pancakes for the kids, my hands steady, my voice cheerful. Mark came down, yawning and stretching, complaining about how sore his legs were from his workout. I just smiled. "You're working so hard, honey," I said, my voice dripping with a sweetness so fake it could give you cavities. He beamed, lapping it up. "Gotta stay in shape," he said, oblivious. He kissed me goodbye, a peck on the cheek. "Big day at the office. Probably won't be home until late. Might try to squeeze in a quick gym session if I can." I watched him walk out the door, his black gym bag in hand. "Have a good workout," I called after him, my voice bright. The moment the garage door rumbled shut, the smile fell from my face. The performance was over. It was time for action. I called my boss and told her I had a family emergency, a lie that tasted like ash in my mouth. Then I got to work. My first call was to my sister, Sarah. She's a divorce lawyer. I didn't tell her everything, just that I had found some things out about Mark and needed advice. "Get a separate bank account. Today," she said, her voice all business, "and start documenting everything. Everything." So I did. I spent the morning opening a new bank account in my name only and transferring half of our joint savings into it. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in 24 hours. Then came the documentation. I took my own phone, and using Mark's lucky number passcode, I opened his. I started with Jenna. I took a picture of every single incriminating text message, every photo of them together. Then I moved to the emails, the lease agreement for Unit 7B, the Crate and Barrel receipt for the sofa. I forwarded every single one to a new, secret email address I'd created just for this purpose. I was building my arsenal. The hardest part was looking at her, Jenna. I found her on social media easily enough. Her profile was public. She was a graphic designer, just like the text said. She liked hiking, indie films, and craft beer. She looked fun and carefree. She looked like the woman I used to be before mortgages and orthodontist appointments and 17 years of shared history had weighed me down. Was that what this was about? Was I just old news? The thought was a dagger, but I pushed it aside. This wasn't about my insecurities. This was about his betrayal. My plan for the sofa delivery on Saturday began to take shape. It was a beautiful, terrible idea. I found the Crate and Barrel order confirmation I had emailed to myself. It had an order number and a customer service line. I called them, my voice smooth and practiced. "Hi," I said. "I'm calling to check on an order for my husband, Mark Peterson. Order number 743B9. The customer service agent was pleasant and efficient. "Yes, ma'am, I have it right here. The Davenport sofa, scheduled for delivery this Saturday to 125 River Street, apartment 7B. "That's the one," I said. "There's been a slight change of plans. We're actually doing some painting in that unit this weekend, and the fumes will be terrible. Could we possibly change the delivery address?" The agent put me on hold. My heart hammered. This was the linchpin. If this didn't work, the rest of my plan would crumble. After what felt like an eternity, she came back on the line. "Okay, ma'am, I've spoken with our delivery department. As long as the new address is within the same service zone, it's no problem at all. Where would you like it delivered?" I took a deep, steadying breath, a slow, malicious smile spreading across my face. I gave her my address, our address. The sofa was now coming here, but that was only the beginning. I had one more phone call to make. a call that would set the stage for the grand finale. I dialed the number for Oakwood Properties, the company that managed their apartment building. I just had one simple question for them, but the answer would change everything. The receptionist answered, and I put on my sweetest voice. "Hi there. My name is Jenna Hayes from Apartment 7B. I just have a quick question about my lease." She was happy to help. "Of course, Ms. Hayes, what can I do for you?" I paused, letting the silence hang for a second before I dropped the bomb. "I was just wondering," I said, my voice laced with fake concern. "Does our lease have any kind of clause about a co-signer? My partner, Mark Peterson, just told me he's planning to move out, and I'm a little worried about being able to cover the rent on my own." The silence on the other end of the line was a symphony to my ears. I could practically hear the receptionist at Oakwood Properties fumbling with her keyboard, her professional demeanor cracking under the weight of my casual bombshell. "Me move out?" she stammered. I'm not aware of any changes, Ms. Hayes. Your lease is a joint agreement for 12 months. Both parties are equally responsible for the full term." I let out a theatrical, trembling sigh. Oh, that's what I was afraid of. He's been so distant lately, talking about needing space. He said something about his wife finding out. It's all such a mess. I let that last detail hang in the air, a poisonous little dart. I knew corporate landlords. They hated drama. They hated instability. And they really hated tenants who brought messy, potentially litigious domestic disputes onto their property. "I'm sure it's nothing," I added quickly. "Just pre-wedding jitters, I guess." The lie was audacious, but it served its purpose. I had planted the seed of doubt. The perfect stable couple in 7B was now a liability. The rest of the week was the longest of my life. I was an actress in my own home, playing the part of the oblivious, loving wife. I listened to Mark's fabricated stories of grueling gym sessions, nodding and murmuring sympathetically, while my mind was a whirlwind of logistics. I arranged for my sister to take Liam and Chloe for the entire weekend under the guise of a special Auntie Sarah camping trip they'd been begging for. They were thrilled. I packed their bags with a hollow ache in my chest, kissing their sleeping foreheads on Friday night, knowing that by the time they came home, their world would be irrevocably fractured. But it was a controlled demolition. I would be there to catch them. He wouldn't. Saturday morning arrived, bright and sunny, a cruel mockery of the storm that was about to break. Mark left early, his gym bag in tow. "Big day," he said, kissing my cheek. "Gonna try to hit a new personal record on squats. Then I'm meeting Mike and the guys to help him move a couch. I'll be home late." The sheer nerve of it almost made me laugh. He was going to help Mike move a couch. He was so close to the truth, yet so blissfully ignorant. "Be careful, honey," I said, smiling my practiced, vacant smile. "Don't hurt your back." The moment his car was out of sight, my house became a command center. At exactly 9 a.m., my reinforcements arrived. My sister Sarah, stone-faced and determined, and two of my oldest friends, Maria and Karen, who I'd finally broken down and told everything to the night before. Their shock had quickly turned to righteous fury. "We're not just moving a sofa," Maria had declared, cracking her knuckles. "We're rearranging a douchebag's entire life." At 10:15, the Crate and Barrel truck rumbled down our quiet suburban street. It was even bigger than I'd imagined. The delivery men were professional and efficient, expertly maneuvering the enormous, beautifully upholstered Davenport sofa through our front door. Under my direction, they placed it squarely in the center of our living room, a magnificent gray monument to my husband's deceit. It dwarfed our old, comfortable couch, looking completely out of place, like a showpiece in a museum of a dead marriage. It was perfect. Once the delivery truck was gone, we got to work. Sarah, ever the lawyer, had a checklist. We photographed the sofa from every angle, documenting its pristine condition in its new, unintended home. Then we waited. The next phase required perfect timing. At 1 p.m., the time Mark had told Jenna he'd be there to meet the delivery, I picked up my phone. I had found her number in his contacts. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my voice was ice. She answered on the second ring, her voice light and happy. "Hello?" "Hi, is this Jenna?" I asked. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Sarah Peterson," I said, using my sister's name to throw her off balance. "I'm a lawyer representing the wife of Mark Peterson. I'm calling to inform you that a formal complaint is being filed against you for alienation of affection, and we have ample evidence of an ongoing affair, including a jointly leased apartment and shared assets. A process server is on their way to 125 River Street right now." I didn't wait for a response. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. The fuse was lit. The final piece of the puzzle was Mark. At 1:30, I sent him a single text message. It was a photo, a beautiful high-resolution picture of his brand-new Davenport sofa sitting majestically in the middle of our living room. I attached no words. None were needed. His car screeched into the driveway less than 15 minutes later. He burst through the front door, his face pale and blotchy with panic. He saw the sofa, then he saw me, standing there with my arms crossed, flanked by Sarah, Maria, and Karen. He looked like a cornered animal. What is this?" he stammered, his eyes wide. "Where did you get that?" "It was delivered," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You bought it, remember? For your new life. I just rerouted it. Welcome home, honey." His face crumpled. The lies, the excuses, they all died on his lips. There was nowhere to run. "I can explain," he started, the classic pathetic refrain. "No," Sarah cut in, stepping forward with a file folder. "You can't. What you can do is listen. Your little girlfriend has been informed of your marital status. The management at your love nest has been alerted to the instability of their tenants. And this," she said, tapping the folder, "is a preliminary divorce filing. We have copies of your lease, your texts, your emails, and a receipt for this lovely and very expensive piece of marital asset." Mark stared at her, then back at me, his jaw slack. He looked small and pathetic. The confident, revitalized man from the gym, the man from the photos with Jenna, was gone. In his place was just a liar who had been caught. "Get your things," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "Just the essentials. Your gym bag is already packed, so you're halfway there. You have 30 minutes. He didn't argue. He just stumbled up the stairs in a daze. While he was packing, his phone, which he'd left on the kitchen counter in his haste, buzzed incessantly. I glanced at the screen. It was Jenna. A string of frantic, angry messages. Who the hell was that lawyer? Your wife? The landlord just called me Mark. You told me you were divorced. It was a spectacular implosion, and I felt nothing but a cold, quiet satisfaction. His secret world was burning, and I was the one who had struck the match. 30 minutes later, he walked back down the stairs with a duffel bag and his infamous gym bag. He wouldn't look at me. He just looked at the sofa, this huge, expensive symbol of his betrayal, occupying the heart of the home he had just lost. Without another word, he walked out the front door, closing it softly behind him. And then, silence. A new kind of silence. Not the roaring, empty silence of the past few days, but a clean, peaceful one. The storm had passed. I looked at my friends, at my sister, their faces a mixture of pride and concern. And for the first time in a year, I felt like I could breathe again. The road ahead would be hard, but it would be mine. The house felt bigger, brighter. The sofa, oddly, looked like it belonged there after all. It wasn't a symbol of his betrayal anymore. It was my trophy, a reminder that I had been lied to, yes, but I had not been broken. I had fought back, and I had won.